My name is Troy Parfit. I'm the author of The Devil and His Due, How Jordan Peterson Plagiarizes Adolf Hitler. And I'd like to welcome you to Beyond Order, Jordan Peterson, Crypto-fascism, and the Occult, Part 4 of a series in which I will explain, mostly through an analysis of Jordan Peterson's newest book, Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life, how the world's most recognized clinical psychologist is a crypto-fascist and an occultist. In this installment, we're going to continue to talk about the image that precedes Rule 2 in Beyond Order, specifically where it comes from and why Jordan Peterson selected it. And as usual, I will show you techniques that Peterson uses to blend crypto-fascism with occultism, thereby helping you to understand his aims and latent belief system. Once again, this is the image that corresponds with Rule 2. It's called Materia prima, and Peterson says it was inspired by Hermes Trismegistus, the legendary founder of an esoteric philosophy called Hermeticism, which helped underpin the beliefs of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and its most infamous member, the devil-worshipping Aleister Crowley. Peterson also says his version of Materia prima was influenced by Heinrich Nollius's Theoria Philosophia Hermetica, or in English, The Theory and Philosophy of Hermeticism. That's another Petersonian reference to the occult, hiding in plain sight. Heinrich Nollius was an alchemist at the court of Maurice, Landgrave of Hesse-Kassel, and his Theoria Philosophia Hermetica was published in 1617. Nowadays, Nollius's book seems to be only known for its image rebus, which is popular among people who are interested in the occult. Jordan Peterson's descriptions of rebus are remarkably similar to passages from Aleister Crowley. As you read or listen to these, keep in mind that Beyond Order is marketed as a self-help guide and that its author says it's primarily about understanding the motivation for the Holocaust. Peterson. At the very base of the image is a winged sphere. Atop that perches a dragon. Standing on the dragon is a two-headed human figure, one male head, the other female. The male head is associated with the image of the sun, the female with the moon. In between, but also above the two heads, is the symbol for Mercury, God, planet, and metal simultaneously. A variety of additional symbols round out the picture. Everything portrayed is enveloped in an egg-shaped container. This arrangement indicates that the image is of many things inside one thing. In its entirety, the image is labeled Materia prima, Latin for primal element. The alchemists regarded the materia prima as the fundamental substance from which everything else was derived. Crowley. It is the winged Orphic egg. This essence represents the essence of all that life which comes under this formula of male and female. It carries on the symbolism of the serpents. The egg is gray, mingling white and black. The color of the serpent is purple. Mercury in the scale of the queen. Messenger of the gods. Mercury. Peterson. Among the alchemists, the round chaos was associated with the winged god Mercury, who served as a messenger from the realm of the divine, guide of the souls to the underworld, and bringer of good fortune. It is for this reason that the ancient symbol for Mercury is located at the very pinnacle. Crowley. The figure of the hermit seems to be adoring the Orphic egg because it is coterminous with the universe, while the snake which surrounds it is many-colored to signify the iridescence of Mercury, the alchemical Mercury in one of the stages of the great work. The true will of the alchemists is to fertilize and bring to manifested life the Orphic egg. Bearing in mind that Crowley spoke of prima materia, here's Peterson's Materia prima, along with a piece of Thelemic art, Thelema being the religion Aleister Crowley started after he left the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. First, I want you to focus on Peterson's winged sphere, or round chaos, on which there is perched a dragon. Next, please note the Crowley-esque artwork, specifically the large twin serpents whose tails are entwined and wrapped around the chalice, or Holy Grail, which is in front of the Egyptian pyramid that features the Eye of Horus. Once again, here's Peterson showing a picture of the Eye of Horus and a statuette of Horus from Cairo, where Aleister Crowley got the idea of making Horus his religion's godhead, and where he wrote the Book of the Law after supposedly being possessed by the devil. Recall that it was the Book of the Law that he tried to have delivered to Hitler, so that the Nazis might also worship Horus and create a post-Judeo-Christian new eon. However, as I have said, there is no evidence that Crowley's book got through, And besides, the Nazis had their own occultic traditions. Take, for example, the Thule Society, an occultic association interested in Germanic runes, divining rods, keeping communists and Jews out of Germany, and the notion of a coming German Messiah. In this image, you can see the Thule Society symbol. If it looks familiar, it should. A Thule Society member named Friedrich Krohn created the swastika flag for Adolf Hitler. The Thule Society funded and merged with the DAP, or German Workers' Party, which morphed into the NSDAP, or National Socialist Party. Hitler's biographer, Ian Kershaw, writes that the Thule Society's membership list reads like a who's who of early Nazi sympathizers and leading figures, including Rudolf Hess, who had become Deputy Führer, Alfred Rosenberg, who would head the Reich Ministry for the occupied Eastern Territories, and Dietrich Eckart, who was Adolf Hitler's mentor. Returning to Peterson's Materia prima and the piece of thelemic art, above the apex of Crowley's pyramid you can see a winged globe, rather like Peterson's winged sphere. Crowley writes about the winged globe with its twin serpents, and the wand of the chief adept crowned with the winged globe and the twin serpents of Horus and Osiris. If you're thinking, isn't Horus a falcon? Peterson's Horus is a falcon, but Crowley's Horus has many different names and takes various forms, but is typically a hawk or a winged snake. Crowley writes, twin serpents, these represent the mercurial double current, as on the caduceus. And Peterson writes, the Taoist symbol is a circle enclosing twin serpents. Not to defend Taoism, or Taoism, because it is antediluvian dogma, but the Taoist symbol doesn't have anything to do with serpents. Peterson has corrupted it to make it occultic. And can you guess who else distorted Taoism to incorporate it into the occult? Aleister Crowley, who wrote this book called the Tao Te Ching with new commentary by Ke Xuan. Ke Xuan was Aleister Crowley's Chinese name. The Crowley-esque winged globe is bookended by twin cobras. In Crowley's Diary of a Drug Fiend, he writes about 2 black cobras. And in Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, he says, the ancient Egyptians represented Osiris, god of the state, and Isis, goddess of the underworld, as twin cobras with the tails knotted together. The same symbol was used in China to portray Fuxi and Nuwa. Osiris and Isis are father and mother to Horus. If they are cobras, or snakes, then Horus must also be a snake, like he is in Aleister Crowley's Thelema. And when Peterson said that the knotted tails of twin snakes were used in China to portray Fuxi and Nuwa, yet again he was alluding to the occult. Allow me to explain. During a lecture at the University of Toronto, Peterson spoke about Fuxi and Nuwa and showed this PowerPoint slide. Sounding like a stoned teenager, he said, "It's so insanely cool, this image. So you see the primary mother and father of humanity emerging from this underlying snake-like entity, with its tails tangled together. I think that's a representation. I really do believe this, although it's complicated to explain why. I really believe that's a representation of DNA. And those are the 2 giant serpents out of which the world is made, roughly speaking. And it's the same thing you see in the staff of Asclepius, which is the healing symbol that physicians use, although usually that's only 1 snake, but sometimes it's 2. Here's an image of the staff or rod of Asclepius, and one of the caduceus. Remember Crowley saying, twin serpents, these represent the mercurial double current, as on the caduceus. Now, here's the rod of Asclepius paired with an image of the caduceus that appears in Aleister Crowley's book, The Master Therion. And look what's at the top of the caduceus, a winged globe, like the winged sphere in Peterson's Materia prima. Let's revisit the picture of the Sabbatic goat, or Baphomet, that I showed you in part 1. What do we see in front of its stomach? What looks like the caduceus. In Aleister Crowley's book Magic, he writes, this serpent, Satan, is not the enemy of man, but he who made gods of our race, knowing good and evil. He bade, know thyself, and taught initiation. He is the devil of the Book of Thoth, and his emblem is Baphomet, the androgyne who is the hieroglyph of arcane perfection. He is therefore life and love, but moreover his letter is Ion, the eye, so that he is light, and his zodiacal image is Capricornus, that leaping goat whose attribute is liberty. So, if Satan is light, capitalized because it's a reference to the light of Lucifer, and Satan is represented by the eye, capitalized to show that Crowley is alluding to the eye of Horus, then Horus's eye must signify Satan, which means that Horus must be a stand-in for... Hey, look, it's a picture of Jordan Peterson performing what is most likely an occultic god form ritual, where you try to channel the spirit of some god. And given that in Beyond Order, Peterson says that learning how to pay attention, like the famous Egyptian image of the single eye, could be the single most important accomplishment of our species, we can speculate that the god is Horus. Crowley used to dress up as Horus's father, Osiris, at Golden Dawn meetings, and here he is possibly dressed as Horus, but more likely Horus's son, Harpocrates. Peterson said he got his cape from a monastery next to a cliff in Portugal. Funny that, because although there are monasteries near the water in Portugal, none are in the vicinity of cliffs. However, there is a monastery just 12 kilometers from Boca do Inferno, or the mouth of hell, a chasm in seaside cliffs in the district of Lisbon. The mouth of hell is where Aleister Crowley faked his own death in order to drum up media attention. Anyway, the reason why Peterson's beliefs about intertwined snakes representing DNA was difficult to explain was because they come from the occult, and you're not supposed to teach the occult during psychology class at Canada's foremost institute of tertiary learning. However, the professor's double snakes equals double helix blather doesn't come from Aleister Crowley, who wouldn't have known about DNA, but an author who goes by the alias Simon and his book, the Necronomicon. Simon says, if you will, Satan and the twisting sacred spiral formed by the serpent and the caduceus, and by the spinning of the galaxies, is also the same Leviathan as the spiral of the biologist's code of life, DNA. The Necronomicon delves into some of Peterson's favorite subjects, including the Jungian shadow, Hitler's Mein Kampf, and Aleister Crowley's black magic. Over the years, Peterson has plundered the Necronomicon. All his talk about Tiamat, Marduk, Kingu, Absu, the Tablet of Destinies, and the Enuma Elish is filtered through this trashy occultic paperback, the contents of which he also clandestinely taught at Harvard. For now, I'll just give you a couple of examples of the Necronomicon copying that exists in Beyond Order. Simon, the Book of 50 Names, being 50 separate powers of the god Marduk, defeater of chaos. Peterson, it was for such reason that 50 names characterize Marduk. Simon, S.H. Hook, in his excellent Middle Eastern mythology, tells us that the Leviathan mentioned in Job and elsewhere in the Old Testament is the Hebrew name given to the serpent Tiamat, and reveals that there was a cult, or scattered individuals, who worshipped or called up the serpent of the sea, or abyss. Indeed, the Hebrew word for abyss is Tihom, which means chaos dragon Tiamat. Absu lies in dark waters, as it is called in the Enuma Elish, the creation epic of the Sumerians. Peterson, it is as well the Leviathan hidden in the salt water, the depths, the terrible monster Jehovah refers to overcoming in Job 41:25-34, and in many other places in the Old Testament accounts. The primordial goddess Tiamat, embodiment of salt water, enters into sexual union with the equally primordial male consort, Absu, the embodiment of fresh water. It is also associated with another Hebrew word, Tihom, which is the source of the phrase the deep. Tihom in turn means abyss, and is associated with an early Sumerian term, Tiamat, who is the great mother goddess, dragon, and denizen of salt water, who creates the world with her consort, Absu, in the Mesopotamian creation myth, Enuma Elish. Circling back to Fushi and Nuwa and their serpentine DNA legs, please observe what they're holding in their hands. Look at the image on the left. What is she holding? If you said the world's largest set of chopsticks, that's a good guess, but it's actually a compass. And he's holding a square. The compass and square is the main symbol of the Freemasons. Here's the emblem on the gate of a Masonic lodge in England. The three original founders of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn were Freemasons, and they combined Freemasonry with Hermeticism, Rosicrucianism, and other strands of esotericism, all of which influenced Aleister Crowley. The compass and square predate Freemasonry. Here they are being held by the dichotomous figure in Heinrich Nolius's Rebus. And in Peterson's version of Rebus, we see the compass and square on either side of the figure, sort of floating in space. And can you guess who, besides Aleister Crowley, was influenced by the Freemasons? I'll give you some clues. Peterson is forever praising and defending him. Peterson has called him brilliant, an organizational genius, a master of speech, and good at everything from art to urban planning to economics. Peterson has said that his movement was inspired by nature cults and was pretty good at occult nonsense, and that he succeeded, and no, I'm not making this up, because he possessed black magic. If you guessed Adolf Hitler, full marks. In a book by Hermann Rauschning called Hitler Speaks, Hitler is on record as saying, "But there is one dangerous element of the Freemasons that I have copied. They form a sort of priestly nobility. They have developed an esoteric doctrine through the medium of symbols and mysterious rites, the hierarchical organization and the institution, through magic and the symbols of occult. All this is the dangerous element that I have taken over. Don't you see our party must be of this character?" He banged on the table. "An order. That is what it has to be. The hierarchical order of a secular priesthood. I will tell you a secret. I am founding an order. There will be a great hierarchy of party members." Jordan Peterson's answer to Adolf Hitler's cultic hierarchy of party members is the dominance hierarchy. As he has said, Hitler climbed up the ranks of the hierarchy in a remarkable manner. Peterson's occultic and Hitlerite dominance hierarchy is home to his followers, the lobsters. Peterson positions them as brainless sea insects, and they readily take up their role. Incidentally, he got the idea of lobsters from the occult. Another crustacean to feature in the occult is the crayfish, as seen in this Rider-Waite tarot card called the Moon. Again, recall that the image that accompanies Rule 1 in Beyond Order is a recreation of a Rider-Waite tarot card called the Fool. In 12 Rules for Life, Peterson's first self-help book, he talks about lobsters, crayfish, and crabs. Biologists and others pointed out that Peterson's crustacean commentary didn't intersect with science. Of course it didn't. He's a plagiarist and therefore an academic fraud. His main aims were to remind his fans how primitive they are, and he's right about that, and to emulate Aleister Crowley. Peterson, the lobster and crayfish are, so to speak, water scorpions. Crowley, the crab and the lobster are higher types of crustacea than the crayfish. Returning to the book Hitler Speaks, Aleister Crowley found it spellbinding because he was convinced he had influenced Hitler's speech. Between 1942 and 1944, he heavily annotated his copy of Hitler Speaks, thinking that Hitler's war aims bore correspondence with his idea of the post-Judeo-Christian New Eon to be ruled by Horus. As Crowley biographer Lawrence Sutton notes in Do What Thou Wilt, A Life of Aleister Crowley, his marginal notes to Hitler Speaks are replete with what he saw as unmistakable parallels to the Book of the Law. The unmistakable parallels were just coincidences. That Hitler's and Crowley's speech was curiously similar is undeniable, but what's also undeniable is that Crowley was delusional and a heroin addict. Jordan Peterson's image of Materia prima is meant to convey occultic and crypto-fascist messages, but to understand this, you need to be familiar with the occult and crypto-fascism. I know, it's all very strange and a lot to take in, but I do hope you're learning. And once you take off Jordan Peterson's mask, seeing his true identity is easy. That brings us to the end of Part 4. Talk to you again in Part 5.